Good afternoon. Welcome to the Durham Planning Commission. The members of the Durham Planning Commission have been appointed by the City Council and the Board of County Commissioners. And you should know that any of the items that are before us this evening we're an advisory board. And so the elected officials will have the final vote on any of the issues that are before us tonight. Tonight's meeting is on Zoom on a virtual meeting platform, and the participants do not have the ability to talk or be seen by default. To maintain decorum and a discernible record of the meeting, the chat function has been disabled. We will have public hearings on each item tonight, and you'll have the ability to speak the public at that time. Many of you have signed up in advance. We will go through your names as we receive them during the public hearing. If you hadn't signed up in advance, but you would like to speak, you are able to digitally raise your hand by pressing *9, and we will identify you and call on you, and you'll have the opportunity to speak. If you'd like to call in tonight, you can dial into the meeting, and the number is 1-301-715-8592. Finally, all motions are stated in the affirmative, so if a motion fails or ties, the recommendation is not favorable. May we have the roll call vote, please?
Good evening, Chair ɓ𝗀cie and Commissioners. We have one absence that I'm aware of this evening. That is for Commissioner McIver. So we will need to do a vote to excuse him. Commissioner Amendolia?
Here.
Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Chair ɓ𝗀cie?
Here.
Commissioner Cameron?
Here.
Commissioner Cutright?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin? Here. Vice Chair Kinchin?
Here.
Commissioner Lanfried?
Here.
Commissioner Lowe?
Here. Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Morgan?
Here.
And Commissioner Williams?
Here.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll take a motion now to provide an excused absence for Commissioner McIver.
So moved. Seconded.
Moved by Commissioner Miller and seconded by Commissioner Morgan. So we'll have a roll call vote again, please.
I'm just going to do last names. Amendolia?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
ɓ𝗀cie?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Cutright?
Yes.
Durkin?
Yes.
Kinchin?
Yes.
Lanfried?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
And Williams?
Yes.
Thank you. It passes 12-0.
Thank you. Before we get started, I did want to offer a welcome to Commissioner Cutright to his first meeting. Congratulations on your appointment. Great to have you with us. And if you'd like, we'd love to have you take a minute to just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Sure, I appreciate it, Chair ɓ𝗀cie. Thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to. Sure, I appreciate it, Chair ɓ𝗀cie. Thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to. Sure, I appreciate it, Chair ɓ𝗀cie. Thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to. Sure, I appreciate it, Chair ɓ𝗀cie. Thank you for the opportunity. So looking forward to it. Love to the opportunity go through and so looking forward to it. Love to the opportunity go through and
Welcome again. We're looking forward to working with you and seeing you in person someday when it's safe to do so. Welcome again. We're looking forward to working with you. We will move to the seeing you in person of the minutes and the consistency statement from December 8th. We will move to the seeing you in person of the minutes. There are any changes that people caught or would like to make, please let us know. But otherwise, if there are any changes that people caught or would like to make, please let us know. But otherwise, if there are any, so hearing none, I'll accept the motion for approval. Please let us know. But otherwise, if there are any, so hearing none, I'll accept the motion for approval. Thank you. So Commissioner Amendolia moved the motion. Hearing none, I'll accept the motion. Seconded the motion. Thank you. So Commissioner Amendolia moved the motion. Hearing none, I'll accept the motion. Seconded the motion. Thank you. So Grace, you're on mute. Cameron seconded the motion. Thank you. So
I'm so sorry. I'm hardly ever muted, you know, any other time of the day. Amendolia,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Busby,
yes.
Cameron,
Yes.
Cutright,
Yes.
Durkin,
Yes.
Kinchin,
Yes.
Langfried,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yay.
Miller,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
and Williams.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And did you want to move to the adjustments to the agenda? We don't have any. Staff doesn't have any.
Okay. I don't believe we do either. So I think we can proceed to our first case.
I do need to state for the record that all of the notices were required notice were carried out in accordance with state and local law, and the affidavits for those notices are on file in the planning department.
Thank you. So we'll move to our first case. This was a continued case from our December meeting. This is case Z2000005, the Gillings Tract case, and we'll start with the staff report.
Hey, good evening. Thank you, Commissioner Busby and planning commissioners. If you remember, this case was continued from the last planning commission. And so I won't spend too much time recapping everything, but I do want to make sure I provide enough information for those at home that weren't here in the December planning commission. Just a refresher that this project is submitted by Stephen Dorn of Lennar Corporation. Is currently in the county jurisdiction, and when it goes to council, there'd be a petition for an annexation. The site acreage is about 21 acres in the suburban development tier. The existing zoning is a residential rural, and the rezoning request is for the planned development residential 4.447. The current FLUM designation is industrial, and staff is recommending a FLUM designation if the zoning is approved that is low to medium density residential. This proposal is up to 90 townhouse residential units. If you may remember back in December, the Planning Commission asked for some very specific clarity on the maps and some items in the development plan itself. Staff and the applicant worked hard to address these concerns, and we hope the project before you today addresses them. As you can see in the zoning context map, the residential rural is the current zoning, and a rezoning request is for PDR 4.447 that would still be surrounded by the residential rural around it. Again, the future land use map was one of the maps that was asked to be corrected as well. It's currently flummed for industrial along with many parcels around this area. If this request is approved, staff is recommending a FLUM change to low medium density residential to make the rezoning request consistent. We don't normally include annexation overviews in these projects, but we thought it might be helpful for this specific case. The case area is that hatched area with the red lines around it. That once it goes to council, that's the proposal for annexation. You may have seen in the staff report, I hope you had time to look at it, the revised version, that there is an annexation agreement between the town of Cary and Durham for the remainder of that parcel. There were quite a few changes that the applicant heard that the commissioners would like to see, and the applicant worked very hard to address these. In addition to removing the design commitment relating to generic colors, there was an additional text commitment of adding a minimum or a maximum commitment of 90 residential units that was not on the last development plan. Text commitment 7 was additional as well, including block lengths of 600 feet. Text commitment 8 was added as well. We heard that there was a request for an open space amenity of some sort. And so the applicant worked hard to find out how they could include that as a text commitment and included the following text commitment. The tree save was changed to a minimum commitment of 24%. There was some confusion around the range that was offered. And so the applicant worked to address that as well. And then the building and parking envelope, which follows the southeastern project boundary, was moved slightly away from the project boundary. This is not a UDO requirement. It's something the applicant heard and worked to address. Staff did spend time reviewing these updates and these changes, and do still find that this is consistent with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan and the suburban tier designation. We also feel that this proposal does seek to move land out of the industrial flum and into a residential designation, which is much more appropriate for this area and the surrounding context. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cahill.
Thank you.
We will reopen the public hearing. We had 7 individuals who signed up to speak. They're all proponents. I'm just going to read their names. They may all be a part of the applicant team. It wasn't totally clear, but I'm assuming Mr. Ghosh and others on the applicant team will then start their presentation. We had Kevin Walls, Stephen Dorn, Neil Ghosh, Ryan Akers, Charlie Yoakley, Elizabeth Dorn, and Jesse Hardesty. And so if the appropriate applicant wants to start, and let me know if that's everyone that's on the team, or we can make sure to call folks who would like to speak that aren't a part of this team.
Sure. Chair Busby, so of those names, I cannot speak for Kevin Walls, and I think there was an Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think all the other names you listed are part of the applicant group. And good evening, Chair Busby, Vice Chair Kinchin, and members of the Planning Commission, including new Commissioner Cutright. My name is Neil Ghosh. I'm an attorney with the Morningstar Law Group located at 112 West Main Street in Durham, and I'm representing the applicant for this project. We have our team here tonight to answer any questions you may have. I think you heard their names just now. I'll thank Mr. Cahill for his presentation. He kind of stole my thunder, but I think planning commissioners will recall that this case was deferred chiefly to allow us to clear up a few of the commitments, and especially the boundary applicable to the development plan. We also have added a few commitments based on the feedback we got from you all last time. The project mostly is the same as the last time, though we did clear up the language on a few items. We did add a few new commitments as well. The first is related to block length. We are committing to a block length that is no greater than 600 feet. We also have committed to a programmed open space amenity, which will be required to have at least a few active features within it. And kind of as a proxy for guaranteeing that that amenity is centrally located within the community, we have made an additional commitment that the amenity area will be no more than 700 feet away from each dwelling unit. Other than that, the project is the same as what was presented last time. The project will contain no more than 90 townhomes. There will be 2 types of townhomes within the community, those with 2-car garages and those without. The 25-foot right-of-way dedication along Page Road still remains, as does the 60-foot right-of-way reservation for the future Chin Page Road extension. The 5-foot bike lane across the frontage also remains as a commitment, as well as all the design commitments. At base, the project would implement a more sensible land use in an area currently slated for industrial on the future land use map. The properties across Page Road mostly have been developed for residential. The property to the south has an approved site plan for an educational use, and the rear of the property contains a 265-foot wide power easement, which permanently will separate the rear of the property from the residential community. So ultimately, this project makes better sense within the context of the area than what a project consistent with the existing flum designation, as Mr. Cahill mentioned, and we believe this project will be a benefit to this area of Durham. As I said, we have our team available to answer questions, and we hope to have your support tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Ghosh. We will move to the other 2 individuals who signed up to speak, both proponents. Kevin Walls, are you with us this evening?
I indicated before the meeting started that I decided after doing more research that I don't need to ask any questions. Everything was taken care of. So I'm just going to pass.
Okay, thank you. And Elizabeth Dorn. And Elizabeth, I see you're with us. We should be able to unmute you, and then you should be able to speak.
Mr. Busby, this is Stephen Dorn. I apologize. That's my better half. And so I don't need to add anything. She probably chime in with a few things, but nothing probably specific to the project. So nothing to say there. Thank you.
Thank you. That's everyone who signed up in advance. If anyone else who is with us would like to speak, again, you can hit *9 to digitally raise your hand, and we'll give you the opportunity to speak. So I'll just give a moment to see if anyone else would like to speak on this case. So no one has indicated they would like to speak, so we will close the public hearing. And commissioners, I'll turn to you if you want to raise your hand if you would like to ask questions or make comments. Commissioners, this is a first. I don't see any commissioners who are also looking to speak. If you would like to speak, you may do so. Commissioner Miller.
So I do have a question. Help me understand, if you can, the commitment you've made about the percentage that will have it says, if I understand it, no more than 70% of the units will have 2-bay garage openings. What does that mean, really? Help me. Does that mean that at least 30% of the units will be narrower units with 1-bay garages, or does it indicate that some of the units will have rear loaded garages? What is it that you have in mind with that?
Yeah, so the other units we anticipate are going to be one car garage unit. But you know, the commitment obviously speaks to a limitation on only one of those. Obviously the zoning would allow for those other types of items, but what we envision is probably going to be all the remaining units would be 1-car garage units.
But all front loaded?
More than likely, yes.
All right. I just wanted to make sure I understood where you were going with that. Those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? I don't see anyone else. I'll just note that as Commissioner Miller raises his hand again, I also note I'm comfortable with this proposal. I'm glad we waited a month, Mr. pp𝗪cie and your team. I appreciate the clarity. I appreciate those additional proffers that you've made. So I do plan to vote for this case. Commissioner Miller?
And this is an observation and a question for staff. It's not something that the developer can control. I noticed that if we change this and that we change the FLUM to have this go from industrial to residential, we will have an even more confused future land use map that doesn't make any sense. And it's unsatisfactory to me. Again, it's not anything these developers can do anything about. The trend here is towards residential, and I do approve of that. But if we approve this parcel going residential, then you're going to have a kind of a goofy arrangement of industrial and residential on the FLUM in this area. It's almost parcel by parcel. And I wish there was a way, when we see these things happening, that we could do something at the same time, or at least I would feel better voting. When I vote to complicate the map, as I may do tonight in this case, I would like to know that there was something following along behind it to make a reasonable simplification of the map to clear up these narrow parcels that will be squeezed by residential that are indicated for industrial, because clearly we do not want the future land use, or at least I don't want the future land use on these parcels to be industrial, all tangled up and mixed up with new residential. And I would be more comfortable voting for this change to residential if I understood that there were plans in the works to fix the FLUM, either by city initiative or some sort of policy statement somewhere.
Grace Smith, Commissioner Miller, I know this might seem like I'm a broken record, but we are getting closer to adopting the goal statements for the comp plan. And I do think the comp plan and some of the things we do with it will clean up areas like this. That is one of the things we are going to be looking at. And I can see that we don't have anything scheduled to do a staff initiated cleanup of this area just for the sake of, these particular parcels. But I can see where we would look closely because trends are changing in this area, as you said. It's not really industrial, or most of the property around it's not being developed for industrial. But I do believe this will be a focus, or definitely get caught up during our comprehensive plan development and adoption. I know that's not next week or next month, but we definitely.
Well, no, I realize that. I just wanted to get some reassurance that I'm not the only one that thinks that we are creating in terms of our zoning map and our future land use map in this area. And I've been saying this now for years, this kind of crazy quilt of residential and industrial. These are uses at the opposite end of our zoning continuum. They're not always very good neighbors. It just seems to me that we set this up in 2006. We envisioned this being a large industrial area, and it's not going to be, and we're not developing it that way. However, there are industrial development projects out there just around the corner from this that I think are appropriate. It's obvious that over time we have made a decision, parcel by parcel, a decision that's been made incrementally, that despite whatever our future land use map says about this being industrial, we see it being residential. I would like to have the staff say, we see that too, and it's something we're going to address and fix.
We definitely will address any changes through the comp plan process where trends have changed or appropriate, or the most desirable, not just desirable, but best land uses are the ones that will go within the new comp plan. We're definitely looking at that. So I'm looking at the map. That's why I'm looking sideways. But yeah, I would see us looking at
You
this
see
area.
what I'm talking about? The lavender versus yellow. It's just if we make the changes that the developer has asked for here, we will wind up with a future land use map that does not, in my opinion, actually reflect City of Durham policy, but under the way we do business will be a statement of policy that we don't intend.
Right. Well,
I will address that in my comments, but
I would say definitely put that in your comments. And for this case, we are recommending, we are in agreement with how the flow would be changed. Just because of that mere fact, I think you can count on us looking closely at this area when we update the comp plan.
All right. Well, thank you. You've been very patient.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. I don't see anyone else looking to make a statement or ask a question. So at this time, I'll accept a motion for this case.
Mr. Chair, may I make the motion?
Please.
In connection with case Z200, God, all the zeros, 20 and a bunch of zeros, 5, the Gillings Tract, I move that we send this rezoning forward to the City Council, and it is the Council, is it not?
That's correct.
City Council with a favorable recommendation. And at the same time, I recommend, I move that we recommend to the council that the future land use map be adjusted for this parcel to reflect a low medium density residential designation. Is that an appropriate motion, staff? Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. So Commissioner Miller made the motion and Commissioner Morgan seconded, and we will have a roll call vote, please.
Amendolia?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Busby?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Cutright?
Yes.
Durkin?
Yes.
Kinchin?
Yes.
Lanfried?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
Miller? Commissioner Miller?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay. Morgan
Yes.
and Williams.
Yes.
It passes 12.
Thank you. We will move to our next case on the agenda. This is case Z2000011, and this is the Falls Village North project, and we will start with the staff report.
Give me just 1 second to load this up. There it goes. Thank you. Good evening, Planning Commission members. Danny Coulter with the Planning Department. This is a request for a zoning map change, Z2000011 Falls Village North, and has been received from Jacob Anderson of Falls Village Development LLC and Jesse ·𝗂𝗶𝘶cie of McAdams Company for 2 parcels of land located at 739 Baptist Road and 117 Santee Road, totaling 209.19 acres. The applicant proposes to change the zoning designation from the site from residential rural to planned development residential 2.883 or PDR 2.883 and rural residential with a development plan RRD, committing to a maximum of 425 single family and townhouse residential units. The future land use map is designated as rural density residential, which is a half dwelling unit acre or less, very low density residential, 2 dwelling units per acre or less, and recreation open space. The applicant is also requesting to modify the FLUM to low density residential, which would be 4 dwelling units acre or less, for the areas located within the suburban tier with no change to the recreation open space designation. No change to the FLUM is being proposed for areas located within the rural tier. There's also a proposed annexation request associated with this, BDG 200010, for this to be brought into the city's jurisdiction. The aerial map indicates the location of the site on Santee and Baptist Roads and Santee Roads, which are just north of NC Highway 98. The undeveloped site is predominantly forested with a mixture of pine and hardwood, with the exception of a maintained clear swath traversing northwest to southeast for a 170-foot wide Duke power transmission easement, as you can see in the site photos. Area photos show that it's surrounded by adjacent undeveloped woodland. To the north, a mixture of undeveloped woodland and single-family rural residential development opposite Baptist Road to the east, an adjacent golf course development to the south, and adjacent rural agricultural development with single-family residential to the west. Additional road intersection photos were added here for context, as road improvements have been committed to at these intersections. This is the Baptist Road intersection, the 98, and this is the Kemp Road and NC 98 intersection. The site context map shows that the site is currently zoned RR, and the applicant requests again to rezone to PDR 2.83 in the suburban tier area and RRD in the rural tier area. And as previously noted, the FLUM is designated as rural density residential, very low density residential and recreation open space, and they're requesting to modify the FLUM to low density residential in the areas in the suburban tier, with no change to any of the other designations. The development plan shows that the hatched areas are the areas that they would allow for proposed development. The arrows indicate the external access points and potential stream crossings, and the dashed line represents the proposed required public greenway easement location. The asterisks represent the proposed tree coverage locations, and the square symbols on this development plan indicate proposed recreational open space locations. Environmental features, required project boundary buffers, and impervious surface commitments are also illustrated. There are many key commitments on this development plan, including restricting the site to a maximum of 425 units, committing a minimum of 50% of the units to be townhouses or single family lots less than 5,500 square feet in size, a maximum of 30% impervious surfaces in the FJB watershed overlay, and a maximum of 5% impervious surfaces in the FJA watershed overlay, providing a one-time $100,000 contribution to the City of Durham Dedicated Housing Fund prior to certificate occupancy, a maximum of 90 units allowed in the area west of CP&L prior easement prior to the second point of access to the roadway network, restricting the development as an age-restricted community, requiring persons 55 or older to occupy 80% of the dwelling units with no permanent residents under age 19 allowed, providing a 10-foot wide multi-use sidewalk along the Baptist Road frontage to connect to site access number 4 to the Greenway system. Required project boundary buffers along Baptist Road to be native plantings except for areas within 50 feet of interest of road rights of way, which can utilize non-native species. Restrict the development within the RRD zone component to the sole access point, SCM's open space and public greenway. Provide 5 feet of additional asphalt for full frontage of the site along Baptist Road for bicycle lanes prior to the CO. Require that a minimum of 50% of the townhouses will be garage access and rear alley loaded only. Restrict maximum distance from the usable open space to residential units at 1,300 feet walking distance. Provide a minimum of 4,000 linear feet of paved or soft surface at walking trails, and restricting homeowners association covenants from prohibiting use of solar panels. There are also some traffic commitments that the applicant has committed to. As the development is proposed as age-restricted community, it did not necessitate a traffic impact analysis. However, the applicant had previously performed one for a prior conservation subdivision development proposal. As such, the applicant has committed to the traffic improvements from that original study. These commitments include constructing all site drives as full movement drives with one ingress lane and one egress lane, constructing exclusive northbound left turn lanes with adequate storage and taper at all site drives on Baptist Road, installing traffic signals at the intersections of 98 and Baptist Road and 98 and Kemp Road, Falls Village Drive, and constructing new turn lanes extending existing turn lanes with appropriate storage and tapers at those named intersections. These are the comprehensive plan policies applicable to the proposed development. And there are 2 plan policies that all of the plan policies are consistent except for 2, one being the flum change. And if it's the flum change is approved, then it will be consistent with that. But also the PDR zoning is inconsistent, it's inconsistent with the contiguous development for this comp plan. And that's it. Staff is available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. pp𝗀𝗀. We will move to open the public hearing. We had 3 individuals who signed up in advance. They're all proponents. I believe they're all part of the applicant team. It's Bob Zumwalt, Reinhold Stevenson, and Ralph Winkle. And so whoever would like to start us off, you may begin your comments for the public hearing.
Yes, good evening, Chairman Busby. This is Bob Zumwalt with Alliance Group. I'll go ahead and, if it's all right, give our presentation of our project. Thanks for your time tonight. Good evening, Chairman Busby and members of the commission. Like I said, I'm Bob Zumwalt with Alliance Group of North Carolina. I'm a licensed landscape architect and I'm in charge of design for the company. I'm joined here by Jacob Anderson, who's the owner of Alliance Group, as well as Reinhold Stevenson, as I mentioned, our traffic engineer from Raymond Kemp. Danny, if you could pull up our presentation, that would be awesome. There we go. All right, so this slide just shows the site, obviously. Why don't you go to the next slide there, Danny? All right, we're excited to present our case to you tonight. We've been working on this for a long time, and we really strive to create this quality community that responds to principles that are important to the Planning Commission and Council. and implements a high quality sustainable design practice and responds to the community's need for diverse and attainable housing choices. The first thing I'd like to just hit on is I want to start by addressing the community's proximity to the path of development in the area. As Danny mentioned, the staff report expressed some concern that Falls Village North was not contiguous to other developments in the area. To help you see a bigger picture, we created this overall map that you can see here, which shows how growth in this quadrant continues to expand in an orderly fashion from the south and west as utilities are upgraded. So what you can see is the areas in orange are already developed. The areas in purple are approved, fully entitled developments that are probably under construction or about to begin. And then the green areas are other sites that are either in due diligence or are currently in the review process. And you can see Falls Village at the top of the page. When we go ahead and go to the next slide, Danny. So when we zoom in a little closer on the site, you can see how it is close to other developments in the area that are shown in orange and green. We're connected to the golf course as well as Neal Middle School. And then in the bottom left, you can see that we're also less than a mile from the Ravenstone Common Shopping Center. And that center contains a grocery store, 2 banks, a gym, a dentist, a gas station, auto parts store, multiple restaurants, and there's 3 churches nearby there. This proximity to services, we feel, is something that other large communities in the area really don't even have the benefit of. And it's because of these things that we feel we are connected and contiguous to other developed areas or planned areas. Go to the next slide, Danny, please. So Falls Village North that you can see, let's see if it pops up. There we go. Falls Village North, as you can see here in yellow, is immediately adjacent to the Falls Village Public Golf Course community. This approved community will consist of 378 homes with a golf course, clubhouse, and over 175 acres of open space. If approved tonight, these 2 communities will be combined under common ownership, and they'll provide a diverse blend of housing types with over 257 acres of open space and a great recreational amenity in the form of a beautiful and very affordable public golf course. It's really a nice golf course. Go to the next slide, please, Danny. I'd now like to touch briefly on age-qualified housing. With supply diminishing in our market, our region has a growing need for active adult housing. According to a market study conducted in November of 2018, back when we started this process, the Strategic Insights stated that 55 plus adults represent the fastest growing demographic in the triangle. They also make up 25% of households and are expected to add approximately 45,000 new households over the next 5 years. We actually went ahead and asked them to update their study, and we received it actually just yesterday. And one of the things that was interesting is they narrowed it down to Durham County alone, and they are projecting there could be a potential demand for 600 new 55 and over homes per year in the next 5 years just in Durham County. So with virtually no school impacts or traffic impacts, property tax revenues generated within this type of community can be redirected to other areas within Durham where greater needs exist. 55 and older communities also have a positive measurable impact through their ability to spur on other types of development in the vicinity. We saw this at Del Webb Arbor's project where it spurred on the rapid expansion of commercial and medical developments in the Briar Creek area. And we believe this community could be a catalyst for similar development and redevelopment along the 98 corridor. Next slide, please, Danny. Housing choices at the combined Falls Village communities would include both 55 and older and traditional housing on varying lot sizes, as well as townhomes, which provide a smaller, more attainable housing option. Falls Village will provide a buyer the ability to age in place or live near an older relative that desires the lifestyle that comes with a fully maintained community. When combined, these communities will offer a total of 803 units, 340 of which would be 55 and older, leaving 463 lots, or about 58% of the combined project, available for traditional lots. And if you could go to the next slide, Danny. Now I just want to take a minute to summarize some of the key elements and commitments we are making. Danny covered them, so I'm going to go over them quickly. Maximum number of units, 425, and the breakdown that we've been talking about between age restricted and the ability to have some non-age restricted. A diverse and more attainable housing choices within the community, which would include 50% of the units will be townhomes or small lots. And then we do have the alley loaded commitment on the townhomes, which creates an attractive streetscape and sort of fosters people getting out and interacting with their neighbors in the front yard. Also over 82 acres of open space. And then all homes located within 1,300 feet of an open space feature. That's probably about a 5-minute walk. And a minimum of 4,000 feet of trails in addition to the sidewalks that are required on both sides of the streets. Appearance is also really important of the homes to create a lasting community. So we've offered some additional architectural commitments. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just want to hit a few. There's commitments to style, material, and color compatibility. There's commitments to vary the roof lines of the townhomes to prevent a single mass appearance. Commitments to a minimum percentage of brick, stone, cultured stone, or stucco on the facades of the units. Preclusion of vinyl siding. There are commitments that all of the units will have a minimum 5-foot deep porch, deck, or patio. And then also we think it's important for decorative garage doors with either decorative hardware or windows in all the units that face the street. Next slide, Danny. I want to shift gears quickly and touch on transportation, which Danny mentioned. What's that? While these retirement communities have little or no impact on peak traffic, we want Falls Village to make a positive impact on the surrounding community. With that said, as Danny mentioned, we did prepare the traffic study, and we are going to go ahead and commit to all the improvements that Danny mentioned. I'm not going to read every one, but you can see the intersections there, improvements at all 4 intersection approaches in green, and then signals as well at those 2 intersections, which will be very helpful for the school and buses being able to get out onto Highway 98. Also have full frontage widening along Baptist, including the walking trail and bike lanes that Danny mentioned. Even though these improvements weren't required, we believe it's the right thing to do, and the whole community up here will benefit from them. They're about $1.5 million, and I think it will greatly help this area. While we think these commitments will ensure a diverse and more attainable community here, we also are happy to offer the $100,000 contribution to the Durham Dedicated Housing Fund. This project's been in the approval process a long time, almost 2 years, and everybody wants things to go fast, but we, Jacob and I speak for Alliance, we believe the time it took, the extra time it took, has resulted in a better community. So thank you for your time, and we're here to answer questions.
Thank you. And then Ralph was signed up, but you didn't mention that he was a part of your team. So I wanted to give him the opportunity, if he's with us this evening, to speak.
Great.
So Mr. Winkle, if you're with us, I don't see your name, but if you want to, you can press *9 and we'll recognize you. And I'll also note, if anyone else would like to speak on this item, you can do the same thing. You can digitally raise your hand and we'll call on you. I see one hand raised, but Bob, it may be someone with your team. It's under your name.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
This is Jacob. I'm not going to belabor and speak on top of everything that Bob mentioned, but I just wanted to say that we're excited to be in front of you guys and happy to answer questions and continue to do what we take to make this even better. I believe there are a couple neighbors that may be on the phone. There's not a ton to speak, but maybe if you gave them a minute, there's a couple elderly neighbors that might take a moment or two.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
There is one other hand that was raised. It's the 919-599-1527. And so we can unmute you. And if you can give us your name and address, and then you can make your brief remarks, please.
Yes, my name is Sam Rogers, and me and my family, we on property up from the project. And it will be helpful for us. My grandfather, he raised his family here on this property. That was over 100 years ago. And I know that we have had this property ever since. I attend most all of the meetings. The project will be for the best things for my family and my community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. I appreciate your comments. And I'll give it one more moment. Again, if there's anyone else who would like to speak on this item, this is the Falls Village North item, you can press *9 to raise your hand digitally, and then we'll unmute you and give you the opportunity to speak. So no one else has raised their hand, so we will close the public hearing. And commissioners, I see Commissioner Williams. I'll start with you.
Thank you, Chair Busby. Let me first say I am extremely excited about this project as it is presented. I definitely am excited about the aging in place aspect of it. I do have some concerns that won't sway my vote to a negative aspect for this particular project. I'm excited about the open space, the sidewalks, the walkability, some of the design commitments that you have. I like the 5-foot minimum depth of the porches and the decks, as well as the patios. That makes it extremely comfortable. But I did have questions. I know this is something you may actually address when you get to site plan and design commitments. And with this being a 55+ aging in place predominant community, are there any situations based off your commitments in your architectural commitments where the ADA preparations or requirements for aging in place how will that affect your architectural commitments? Have you considered that? Will anything have to change as far as the ability to navigate handrails, accessibility ramps, different things, wider doorways, wider hallways, the possibility of having walk-in showers available since it is the 55 and up. And I know that there are some townhomes, and me particularly being over 40, I know that me navigating stairs has become increasingly an issue. So I know that there are some single family homes, but just a future consideration for what it is that we're trying to do. And if we're looking at the longevity of persons having family members that are around, are there any other means or accommodations that you see would be helpful that you may not have considered? Because I know when it comes to ramps and accessibilities, because essentially this will be kind of a public and private entity, and there are codes and regulations that are present. I just don't know that these things as far as ramps may take away from your architectural commitments that you already have, but hopefully they will be additions, because I know you can be quite creative with ramps. Sometimes they don't necessarily have to look like ramps, but just wondering, just bringing that up. And I know that was a lot, sorry.
That's all right. This is Bob with Alliance. Thanks for your comments. One thing I will say is all the accessibility requirements are regulated federally. And so we will have to meet all the accessibility requirements related to sidewalks, trails, access to open space. And so those are required. So we can't add those as commitments because we have to do them. And then with regard to the construction style of the homes, I was involved with the BDP project deeply for 15 years probably. And, you know, the fact that these are age restricted units, the home builder clearly has to sell them to an age restricted buyer. And so they are very good at making sure all the entrances are flush, that there's not a lot of steps. And so that kind of stuff kind of takes care of itself with the home builder if they really want to market this to that buyer. And so again, a lot of the things you mentioned, like shower widths, that stuff you standard see in these age restricted homes, something we probably wouldn't be able to restrict in the zoning conditions anyway, but it is the only way they can sell these houses. So I assure you will see that stuff in the homes. Does that help?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't mean to be unclear previously when I spoke. I was just wondering, even though I know ADA requirements are federally regulated and they have to be there, I was just wondering if it was a consideration in terms of your architectural commitments about the creativity of the presentation of it. Like, how will the ramps look? Or will it take away from the fact that it may be covered by shrubbery, or it may be on the side of the home? Because I know sometimes there's issues with garages being on the front. So that was more so my question, just to give an example of what I was thinking about in terms of ADA commitments, design-wise, not their implementation.
Gotcha. Are you talking about ramps into the homes or?
Carmen, this is
Outside.
Jacob. This is Jacob. I'd just like to answer that from the inside and outside. I think the development as well as the builder will be heavily focused on making sure that all ADA, from the hallways to the open floor plans, to the trails, to the amenity, that everything is extremely connected. We mentioned earlier to one of your fellow commissioners, we do have some topography to deal with on this site in getting members maybe from the north to south. But as Bob has mentioned on several other projects we're doing, you always have to get members from one area to the amenity to the others. And I think throughout the process, ADA compliant, every home will be ADA compliant. Every home will have access to the amenity and such, and the open spaces from an ADA perspective, and that will be a requirement. Carmen, I'm actually glad you asked the question, just because even though this community will be a good balance between market homes and 55 and over, I appreciate you asking the question, just because I think some people miss the mark sometimes in understanding the fact that it takes a lot to live in a home after the age of 65 or 70, and the home being designed as such and the community being designed as such, I think is very important. So that's what we try to do here. And as Bob mentioned earlier in the report, I think throughout the next 5 to 10 years in the Triangle, this population is going to continue to grow, and the issues of elderly trying to live in a traditional house is going to continue to be an issue of walking up steps or stairs. So I appreciate you asking the question, and I hope we answered yours.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much. Again, I'm extremely excited about this project.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say, when I first learned about this project, which was more than a year ago, I went out to visit some of the neighbors in the up the Baptist Road area who were very worried about development trends, not just for this project, but all around the Olive Branch Road area. And on my way out there, they had organized the meeting so that I would experience peak hour traffic, and it was terrible. And it made me a skeptic about the wisdom of how we were going to approve future developments on the north side of 98. There is a terrific amount of traffic. I got stuck in it. I waited through many cycles of lights. I don't think this is going to go away, but I will note that with regard to this project, is that essentially, if it's granted, the development potential we're approving is actually smaller than the current development potential on the ground. That doesn't necessarily mean that anybody who was going to develop it under the existing zoning was going to max it out, but that's the assumption. I think that's it's the only safe assumption to make. So that matters to me. And then the thing that sways me is this is a remarkably thoughtful suite of committed elements, from design and from traffic management and Sorry about that. So I'm going to vote for this, and I have appreciated the opportunity that I've had to talk with the developer and their designers. A lot of the ideas that I have been developing for myself with regard to future suburban development are touched on here, like proximity of recreational spaces to the units, the mixture of unit types, mixture of unit sizes and lots, front and back loaded garages, a thoughtful mix of materials. It's all here for me, and I urge everybody else to vote for this too. If these folks can develop this project under this suite of design and development commitments, then anybody can come up with a thoughtful suite of commitments, and we can have better development going forward, not just here, but everywhere. So I wanted to thank the developers. I also wanted to thank the neighbors out there who introduced me to the area. I went out there again this week to look. It's a remarkably pretty place. And I think this is actually probably the very best project that we could expect to get out there on so much undeveloped property. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Commissioner Baker?
Yeah, I would repeat some of the things that have already been said. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of the work that's been done. I think the developer has kind of had a good understanding of what this commission has been looking for and the direction that we've been going in, and has really gone above and beyond in making additional commitments. I would still say that to me, this doesn't achieve, I think the words earlier that were used were sustainable design. To me, this doesn't yet get to sustainable design. This is better, but it's not sustainable design. I still think that this is an auto-oriented development. This is a very, very large parcel, 210 acres, 425 units of housing, which are all single family attached and single family detached, but all single family. You know, we don't have a block-like commitment. You know, this is a non-contiguous property. Of course, we saw the map that was shown to us about some of the legacy approvals. But regardless of legacy, it's still non-contiguous. You know, we've got an affordable housing problem in Durham, and to me, although my decision doesn't rest upon whether there is a commitment to dedicate to the Affordable Housing Fund or not, doesn't matter to me. But you know, with 425 units, $100,000 commitment is extremely minimal. And also, age-restricted community. Certainly, I understand that that there are people who like to live in those, and they will be built from time to time and in various locations. But obviously, you're legally creating a community that cannot be multi-generational. And that to me is not ideal and not exactly the direction that we should go in. And also green building, you know, we know, I believe in climate change. I think that many or most of my fellow commissioners believe in climate change, believe that we actually do face a climate crisis. And I'm not sure that we're going in the right direction. I think we're going in the wrong direction when it comes to climate and sustainability. But all of that said, as I mentioned at the beginning, I do think that this goes in the right direction on a few items. And so I just want to highlight some of those things. First of all, since I joined the Planning Commission, the developer is now going to have to build sidewalks on both sides of the street and plant street trees, and that is huge. That's a requirement. We don't have to ask and beg for it anymore. It just happens. So that's a good thing. And thanks to a significant amount of grassroots organizing in Durham that made that happen. A minimum 50% of the townhome units in this development will have rear alley access, as Tom and brought up, and I think that's a good thing. It creates a much more walkable, potentially walkable community from a design perspective. It moves your utilities and driveways to the back, and so you don't have all these curb cuts that are in the front. It could actually, in some cases, it can actually reduce impervious surface area. All residential units have a front porch, which is something that Commissioner Williams brought up, and that is so important. This semi-public, semi-private space, this transition from the public to the private. There's actually a significant amount of research on this that shows that when you have neighborhoods with front porches, it actually stimulates social interaction between people and their neighbors, people walking down the street, and neighbor to neighbor. And it puts eyes on the street and actually creates a safer built environment, a safer street. And this one is really important to me, and that is that 100% of the residential units are going to be within a quarter mile, which the developer pointed out is about a 5-minute walk of usable open space. That is absolutely important, and we need to codify that and make that a regulation. We're starting to see cities across the United States that are moving toward achieving 100% of their residential units being within a certain walk of park space and open space. San Francisco, famously in 2017, was the first city to achieve a 10-minute walk to park space from all of their residential units, and we need to be going that direction as well. And then lastly, the open space dedication is almost unparalleled. You know, there's a significant amount of open space here. So I am not excited about this project, but I think that there are many things in this project that I am excited about. I am happy that they have decided to be thoughtful and reach out to the community and work with commissioners and improve the project. So for that reason, I am leaning toward, unless someone else makes a strong case against it, I am leaning toward voting for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. Commissioner Williams, you raised your hand again.
Yes. I've been kind of waiting for the opportunity to bring this up since we talk about sidewalks and the walkability of blocks. And I just didn't know if the majority of the commissioners knew that the homeowner is responsible from their front door to the street. So if the grass overgrows on the sidewalk, it is our responsibility as a homeowner per city ordinance to clear that sidewalk. This recently became an issue with me transitioning from work to home, where the grass is overgrown on my sidewalk, and a city official came out and made me aware. The problem is the person who owns the home is 80, and it's her burden to go out there and clear that sidewalk so that it is 4-foot walkable, so that people can take advantage of that. So it's not something that the city does, and you can actually be fined and you can actually have issues if a complaint is filed and you're not able to maintain the sidewalk that is put there for public use because it is technically attached to your property. So I have an issue with that. And I don't know that this is necessarily, well, I know that this is not the project to address that, but I don't know that there's many people who actually understand that the sidewalk is attached to your home and it is your responsibility. And since this is an aging in place facility, then we have to start putting things together where something is happening. And I know that there are HOAs and there are other things, but this is not the project for that, but this is definitely the opportunity to bring that up so that people are aware as we're introducing more walkability in neighborhoods.
Thank you. Commissioner Morgan?
Thank you, Chair. I've been having issues with the internet. It's going up and down. So I missed part of the thing, but in addressing to the applicant, is there any provision, as the issue that Commissioner Williams brought up, is there anything in the HOA where they are providing, a lot of that? In my community, Carolina Arbors, we have a lot of that landscaping agreements, and it's part of our thing. The only thing I maintain is some gardening, and that's it. But as far as walkways and things like that, that's usually part of what the HOA and what's covered in the community. Is that something from the applicant? Is that something in your bylaws or considerations as you're setting up this age-restricted community?
Commissioner Morgan, yes. I don't think it completely touches on what Commissioner Williams is discussing for probably more infield or areas outside of HOAs. But for this community, Mr. Morgan, this would be maintained, both single family and townhome. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clear that up. I know it's not a big deal, but it sounds like if we just know what it is and where you're going, that would be helpful. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. I don't see any other commissioners asking to speak. I will just share that when I looked at this case originally, we've seen a lot of cases in this part of Durham that are further from the downtown core. I had questions and some concerns having read the packet. And I think for me, seeing the context of the area is what is going to lead me to vote for this proposal. As Commissioner Miller said, you often don't see cases where the projected traffic is going to go down and you're going to see significant transportation improvements. Particularly for me, the traffic light in front of Neal Middle School, I think is a big deal. But I also do really appreciate a lot of the thoughtful design commitments and the time that the developers have taken. And it's also good to hear that we heard from a neighbor who is supportive as well. So all told, I think this is a good step forward and an improvement from what it was currently zoned for. So I plan to vote yes at the appropriate time. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chair, then in connection with case Z2000011 Falls Village North, I move that we send this forward to the City Council with a favorable recommendation. And with that recommendation, we also recommend that the future land use map be changed in the way that the staff has recommended in our staff report.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So moved by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Amendolia, and we'll have the roll call vote.
Amendolia?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Busby?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Cutright?
Yes.
Durkin?
Yes.
Kinchin? Vice Chair Kinchin? Did we?
Yes.
Okay. Landfried?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
Okay. Miller?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
And Williams?
Yes.
All right, passes 12-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move to the next case. This is case Z2000010. This is Chandler Run. It was continued from our November 10th, 2020 meeting. And we're not going to have a staff report. I think we'll just have a staff update on this item. Is that correct, Mr. Cahill?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair. So the applicant is working to address the comments heard from the Planning Commission, from staff, and hosted a neighborhood meeting, and is working to address those comments as well. So we just request a continuance of just one more 30-day stint to the February Planning Commission so we can finish verifying these with other partner departments and get the best possible project to you.
Thank you very much. We'll take a motion for a 30-day continuance of this case.
So moved.
Second.
I missed who moved and who seconded, if you don't mind repeating yourselves. Commissioner Baker?
Moved, yeah.
Okay,
Kimberly Cameron.
thank you. I looked down for 1 second. Commissioner Baker, Commissioner Cameron moved and seconded. We'll have the roll call vote, please.
Amendolia,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Busby,
Yes.
Cameron,
Yes.
Cutright,
Yes.
Durkin,
Yes.
Kinchin,
Yes.
Landfried,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yay.
McIver, oh, sorry, he's absent. Miller,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
and Williams.
Yes.
Passes 12-0.
So we will move to our next case, and that is case Z2000013. That's 920 Sherron Road. And we'll start with the staff report.
Do a screen share here just a second, and I'll pull that right up. There we go. There we go. Thank you again. Danny Coulter again with the Planning Department. This is a request for a zoning map change to Z2000013 at 920 Sherron Road and 922 Sherron Road. Has been received by Jared Edens with Edens Land Corp. For 2 parcels of land totaling 7.67 acres. The applicant proposes to change the zoning designation of the site from residential suburban 20 RS20 residential rural RR to planned development of residential 7.171 or PDR 7.171 for a maximum of 55 residential townhouse units. The future land use map or FLUM is designated as low density residential 4 to 8 dwelling units an acre. There is no change to the FLUM being proposed. An associated annexation petition, BDG 20-010, has been submitted for approval to bring the site into the city's jurisdiction. And the aerial map indicates that the location of the site on the northern side of Sherron Road, just south of the intersection of Sherron and Holder Roads, and just north of the intersection of Sherron Road and Shear Avenue. There we go. The site was previously developed with a single-family residential dwelling, which has been demolished. The site contains a mixture of mature pine and hardwood vegetation. A Duke Energy power easement is located on the northeastern portion of the site. The site is surrounded by adjacent residential RR and RS20 zone single-family and agricultural development to the northeast, adjacent RR and RS20 zone single-family development to the west and northwest, and is opposite Sherron Road from RR and RS20 zone single-family agricultural development. The context map shows that the RS20 and RR zone zoning designations on this site, and again, they're requesting for a planned development residential 7.171. The FLUM map shows the area as being low, medium density residential in the entire area, no change to the FLUM. The development plan shows the dashed areas as being the proposed building and parking envelopes. The thin dashed lines indicate the required project boundary buffers. The arrow indicates the external access location point, and asterisks represent proposed tree coverage location. They also indicate the maximum total unit count, impervious surfaces, and open space on the plan. There are a few key committed elements on this. One is restricting the use to townhouse units and permitted accessory uses, committing to a maximum of 55 units, dedicating 25 feet of additional right-of-way for the site frontage along Sherron Road prior to issuance of building permit, providing 5 feet of additional asphalt for full frontage of the site along Sherron Road to accommodate a bicycle lane prior to certificate of occupancy, and constructing an exclusive eastbound eastbound left turn lane with adequate storage and appropriate tapers on Sherron Road at the site entrance prior to certificate of occupancy. There are a few comp plan policies that are applied to this site, and they are consistent with all of those policies. And staff determines that they meet all policies and with a comprehensive plan and all applicable policies and ordinances.
Thank you. We will open this public hearing. We have just two individuals, both with the applicant team, Jared Edens and Michael Sherron.
Good evening, Chair Busby.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Jared Edens with Edens Land. Appreciate your time this evening. Danny, appreciate your summary of our project. I'll be brief. As Danny mentioned, we're trying to do 55 townhomes here on Sherron Road. It's a really popular part of town. I lived in Brightleaf out here for about 12 years, so it's fast growing. I've definitely seen a lot of changes in the area. But the one issue with development so far has just been the lack of options out there. If you zoom out on the map, it's just single family upon single family upon single family, and there are very little options other than that, and which I don't think is good for such a fast growing part of town. So our townhomes are hopefully providing an alternate to that. Per the staff report, we have plenty of capacity as far as roads, schools, utilities. The main thing I want to talk about though is been following the meetings. Obviously, it's obvious you guys are looking for some more detail in the applications. I had sent Danny earlier today some added conditions we would like to offer up tonight. Danny, if you want to bring those up.
Certainly. Let me pull the screen share and I'll try to pull it up for you. There we go. Is that visible?
Yeah, I can see it. So I'll run through them quick. I won't read them to you, but basically, number one, we're trying to touch on different, both environmental, open space, affordability, things like that. So 2 vehicular electric charging stations on the property. We're going to commit to 110% of the required recreational open space. And I'm trying to give you a little detail as to what will be in there. So at a minimum, those 3 items will be there. That's a 1/4 acre dog park, 1/4 acre multipurpose field, and that's 1/10 of a mile of 5-foot trail. We're also maximizing the width and the size of the units. That's going to err more towards the side of affordability. Also, architecturally, being a narrower unit, that's going to ensure a single family garage, and that just looks better as opposed to the 20 and 22-foot units that are 2-car garages. We recognize we have some neighbors around us, so we're going to do our stormwater ponds to hold the 100-year event to alleviate any flooding concerns. And then architecturally, we added 3. So making sure that all the end units have 2 windows on the side facades, covered front stoops, and then brick in addition to 1 other prominent material along the frontage for some kind of variation. That's it for my presentation. Be glad to answer your questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Sherron is part of your team, is that correct?
No.
Okay, Mr. Sherron, then the floor is yours. You may speak as well. If you can give us your name and your address and make your remarks, please.
Sure. My name is Michael Sherron. I'm an adjacent property owner on 2 sides of the property, and I have some questions about the stormwater runoff. I notice on the site development plan, you have a SCM wet pond, and then right beside it, you have a smaller, apparently, pond. Is that also a wet pond? And what is the depth of these ponds? And are they going to be fenced off to protect children from coming to the ponds and exploring? Should I ask my questions one at a time so they can be answered? And I have about 4 more.
Mr. Sherron, what would make sense, I think, is as part of the public hearing, if you want to share your questions, and then I think Mr. Edens will have some additional time reserved where he could answer those as part of the public hearing, if that works for you.
Sure, that works for me. I noticed also on the site plan between the two center rows of townhomes that you have a 20-foot storm drain easement. I would like to know if all that rainwater, stormwater runoff is heading to the wet ponds, and also over on the bottom right-hand corner where the dog park is, what kind of treatment provisions are we making for that runoff from the dog water park? Also, that 5-foot bike easement, does it start and stop at the end of each side of the property along Sherron Road? And I noticed they're not showing sidewalks along Sherron Road. Are we planning no sidewalks there? And is that 5-foot bike easement going to be put in before the COs? And I think I got the answer to that. I also noticed there's only one handicap parking space in the guest parking, and I was surprised to see that. I would have thought there would have been more. Also on excuse me one second here. Also, is that stormwater runoff in the center of the complex, is that also going to be used for the tenants' 100-square-foot privacy yards? And if so, are they planning to put fences up for the privacy yards, or will that be for the homeowner to do at a later date? And that concludes my questions at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Sherron. Mr. Edens, there's a couple minutes left as part of the public hearing. You're welcome to use that time to address those questions as appropriate.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'll do the best I can. Mr. Sherron, he's referring to a site plan, a tentative site plan in review that's not under approval tonight. So I'll address what I can, but the development plan doesn't speak to a lot of what he's referring to. I will tell you, on the storm drainage, we will be capturing, I mean, it's commonplace to meet the regulations. We'll be capturing storm drainage from the property. You know, all of it, including the dog park area, will get routed to our pond. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to detain that to the 100-year level. So there shouldn't be any flooding concerns at all. Ms. Sherron mentioned the depth. Those ponds are generally 3 to 6 feet in depth, those wet ponds. Let's see, 5-foot sidewalk. We are installing 5-foot sidewalk along the frontage. That's a UDO requirement. Bike lane will be installed. There was a mention of handicap spaces. We do have 2 visitor spaces planned, 2 handicap spaces planned. I tried to address the ones I wrote down. I was writing down quickly, but I think mainly for stormwater, I don't think there should be any concerns with our neighbors on stormwater wise. We're definitely going above and beyond what the norm is.
Okay, could I interject here? On the dog park, that area is pretty low on that corner of the property. So you're telling me that you're going to flow the drainage from the dog park all the way to the 2 wet ponds that are in the back of the property? I
should clarify, any impervious areas in and adjacent to the dog park will go to the stormwater ponds, yes. But the areas that are just remaining grass and vegetated, we don't have any special design for that stormwater, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks to both of you. If anyone else would like to speak on this item, you can press *9 to raise your hand and we will let you speak. I don't see anyone else, so we're going to close the public hearing. And commissioners, if you want to let me know if you would like to speak on this item. While I wait to hear that, Mr. Edens, you had mentioned the 100-year floodplain is above and beyond the current standards. Can you remind us what the current standard would have been without an additional proffer on stormwater control on this site?
Yes, generally it's the 10-year storm is generally the requirement, but there are cases where you can analyze property downstream and prove that you don't even need to detain to that level, to even the 10-year level, and that's been done many times over the years. So the 100-year level is quite a bit more volume of stormwater than what you can do.
Thank you. Commissioners, I don't see any questions or comments, so if we are ready to vote on this item, I can recognize someone to make a motion. And a reminder, the chair can't make the motion, so one of you does have to do it.
Well, then I'll make a motion. Mr. Chairman, in connection with case Z2000013, the property at 920 Sherron Road, I recommend that we send this forward to the City Council with a favorable recommendation. And staff, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no flum recommendation associated with this case.
That is correct, Chair, Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. That's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Great. Commissioner Miller made the motion. Commissioner Cameron won the race for the second, and we will have the roll call vote.
Amendolia,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Busby,
Yes.
Cameron,
Yes.
Cutright,
Yes.
Commissioner Cutright, are you still on the call?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Durkin? Yes. And Keachin?
Yes.
Landry?
Yes.
Okay. Lowe?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
And Williams?
No.
Okay, it passes 11-1.
Thank you. And our final case this evening is case Z2000005 and that's 4523 Hope Valley Road. And we'll start with the staff report.
Give me 1 second again to put the screen share up here. I'll pull that up. There we go. Good evening again. Danny Coulter of the Planning Department. First, I do want to point out one thing for this staff report tonight that you may have received previously. There was an error in the square footage listing within the report. The case was originally submitted to propose a maximum of 50,000 square feet, and that is what was listed in the report. However, later on in the review process, the development plan was actually reduced to reflect a maximum of 32,000 square feet. Corrections have been made online on all the documents, so you may have seen the most recent corrected documents that are there now. But it is 32,000 square feet for the maximum square footage. So I wanted to clarify that for you. So, but anyway, the requested for a zoning map change Z2000004 at 4523 Hope Valley Road has been received from ppsivers Associates PA for one parcel of land totaling 3.44 acres. The applicant proposes to change the zoning designation of the site from residential suburban multifamily with a development plan, or RSMD, to residential suburban multifamily with a development plan, RSMD, for a congregate living facility with a maximum of 32,000 square feet of floor area. The previously approved development plan, case P9379, restricted the site to a maximum of 21,900 square feet of floor area. Additionally, a minor special use permit, or MSUP, is required for a congregate living facility use within a residential zoning district. However, by ordinance, if a development plan is approved that defines the proposed use, location, access, building height, and size, then the MSUP is not required. The applicant has actually chosen to define these components on the development plan to remove the requirement of the special use permit. The future land use map, or the FLUM, is designated as medium density residential at 6 to 12 dwelling units per acre, and there is no change to the FLUM being proposed. The aerial map, as you can see, bounded by the red, indicates the location of the site on eastern side of Hope Valley Road, which is just south of the intersection of Hope Valley Road and South Roxborough Street, and just north of the intersection of Hope Valley Road and NC Highway 54. The site is actually developed within the existing congregate living facility and associated parking, surrounded at all parcel boundaries by a mixture of mature pine and hardwood vegetation. The site it's surrounded by adjacent RSMD zone multifamily townhouse development to the north, adjacent RSM zone multifamily apartment development to the east and south, and is opposite Hope Valley Road from residential suburban 10 or RS10 zone single family residential development. And the context map illustrates that the site is zoned residential suburban multifamily development plan, and they intend to rezone to the same designation. And the future land use map indicates that it's medium density residential, and there is no change to the flow. If you can see on the development plan, actually that didn't blow up. There it goes. The interior dashed areas on the development plan indicate the actual building envelope, with the outer areas indicating the parking envelopes. The areas outside the parking envelopes indicate required project boundary buffers, and the arrow indicates the access point, and the asterisks indicate proposed tree coverage. They also indicate on the development plan the maximum total unit count, maximum building height, and impervious surfaces are indicated. Key commitments for this development plan are the use is limited to a congregate living facility and permitted accessory uses, maximum 48 units, maximum 32,000 square foot building area. Redevelopment of the project exceeding 50% of the appraised tax value will be subject to compliance with all ordinance requirements. Minimum of 5 feet of additional asphalt for a full NC 751 frontage to provide it to accommodate a bicycle lane prior to certificate of occupancy, and construct an exclusive southbound left turn lane on NC 751 at access point number 1 with adequate storage and appropriate tapers prior to certificate of occupancy. And these are the comprehensive plan policies that are applied to this actual development, and they are in compliance with those. And staff determines that this request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all applicable policies and ordinances.
Thanks again, Mr. ʗ𝗀𝗀𝗃.
You're welcome.
We will move to the public hearing, and on this item, we have 3 individuals who have signed up as proponents and 4 individuals who have signed up as opponents. And so we will offer 10 minutes per side per our standard procedure. And we'll start with Tim Sivers, and then the other individuals who signed up to speak in support are ጵ𝗀cie and Eric Morton. But Mr. Sivers, I assume you'll kick us off?
Yes, thank you. Danny, if you could bring up the presentation, please. While Danny's doing that, thank you. Good evening, Chair Busby, members of the Planning Commission. You all know me very well. Commissioner Cutright, welcome to the party, if you will. Look forward to working with you, as do the other commissioners. My name is Tim Sivers with Horvath Associates, located at 16 Consultant Place, Durham, North Carolina. I am a registered landscape architect in the state of North Carolina. We do have multiple members of our team connected virtually this evening. The co-founder of Navion Senior Living, Eric Morton, and the COO of Navion Senior Living, ጵ𝗀𝗃𝗃, is available. They'll both be making a short presentation after mine, but we'll be able to meet that 10-minute time frame. So thank you. Next slide, please. The request in front of you this evening does include a rezoning application of 3.44 acres. The primary intent of this rezoning is to allow additional development for building square footage from the current development plan allowances. With that in mind, I do want to clarify a few items. Yes, the current zone is RSMD, and our proposed zone is RSMD. There is no proposed change to the future land use map.
The current building shown on your screen has 32 units containing 52 of the 60 beds that are currently permitted. The development plan allows for a maximum of 48 units to allow all 60 beds to be used. The difference and reason for this rezoning is to allow an increase in our building square footage from the previous maximum square footage of 21,900 square feet from the development plan approved in 1993 to our proposed maximum of 32,000 square feet. And Danny, thank you for that correction. Currently, a site plan is under review for this building expansion located at the northeast corner of the existing building. The expansion is not visible from 751, but it will still architecturally coordinate with the existing building. The expansion, as you're seeing in your screen, will be in the right-hand corner, upper right-hand corner of the building area. Next slide, please. Summary of the key text and design commitments to include the maximum of the 48 units, 32,000 square foot building area maximum. Tree coverage area represented 20% of the tree preservation in 3 locations surrounding the existing building. Project boundary buffers to bring the site up to current UDO requirements. Right-of-way dedication, construction of the southbound left turn lane on NC 751, as well as the 5-foot bike lane along the site frontage as recommended by Bike and Ped. In accordance with the request, next slide, please. In accordance with the request made by Commissioner Miller and reviewed by city staff, this slide provides updates to the architectural design commitments of the development plan. As you can see, vinyl siding is being removed as an option and fiber cement siding is proposed in its replacement to better accommodate the existing facility. In addition, the bottom statement provides clarity that the building expansion will be constructed with similar architectural materials as the existing building. I do request that you vote in favor of the development to allow the existing congregate living facility to expand and increase their level of service to the residents. Thank you for your time this evening, and our team is available for any questions. I'd like now to hand it off to ጵ𝗀𝗶𝗇 as well as Eric Morton for their short presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tim, and thank you for the opportunity to address the Planning Commission tonight. Eric Morton here. I'm a co-founder of Navion Senior Solutions. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for your time and also just offer kind of a quick overview of what our vision for this project. We're so excited about this project and the opportunity that it creates to expand our ability to offer very, very well needed senior living options in Durham. This building was constructed about 25 years ago by a different company. It has 60 licensed beds and only 32 rooms. So there's, many of the rooms are shared rooms. This is a project that's an opportunity to expand the building, to add the private rooms that our residents strongly desire. And we're really excited about the opportunity to deliver the living options that our residents want. In addition, we're adding a great deal of common space to the community, making more wonderful spaces for our residents to enjoy. And it will also give us an opportunity to make some relatively material upgrades to the interior of the building, which is something that everyone's really excited about as the building was built more than 25 years ago. So it is due for that. So overall, we believe this project is going to have a very strong impact on the quality of life of our residents and the availability of high quality senior care options that our community needs. Thank you. And Kelly's available for questions as well. I don't think she has a prepared statement.
Thank you. ጵ𝗀𝗶𝗇, you're welcome to make a statement if you'd like, but we can also just call on you if we do have any questions. We will move to then the individuals who signed up to speak in opposition. And I believe all of you are still with us. And so we give 10 minutes per side, and with 4 of you, you each will have about 2.5 minutes each. If you can give us your name and your address, and then you can make your remarks, that would be appreciated. We'll start with Jerome Slata.
Yes, my name is Jerome Slata. I live at 5515 South Roxborough Street, Unit 18. And on the site plan, that's essentially, it's the units that you can see briefly outlined, kind of closest to the back of Carolina Reserve. So my only question is really what features will be added for the community, and like how do you do active construction with people living there when you're physically building onto the site? So construction noise was my main concern, and how much physical tree buffer will be left when the site expands kind of backward toward the South Roxborough Street community.
Thank you. And if it works for you, I think we can do what we did with the previous case. We can have the four of you speak, and there is some remaining time, so the applicant could use some of that remaining time to address your questions.
Of course, I yield my time to my other applicants.
Thank you. Next, we had Shannon Murray.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Shannon Murray. Like Jerome, I also live at 5515 South Roxborough Street, unit number 14. I would be impacted by this community, as would my neighbors. Specifically, my unit abuts that area, as I'm certain Jerome's home does as well. And I have a couple of concerns that are associated with this. First of all, by building a facility, which, you know, when I moved to this community, one of the desirable aspects of this was that there was wooded area that was behind my home, okay? That gave myself as well as my neighbors a wooded area that created privacy. Now we're saying that we're going to rezone this and take that away from us. I've been very happy with the way my home has appreciated in value. I am now concerned that the value of my home will be impacted by putting a facility like this or expanding this into that area. And Jerome, you know, I don't know if that's necessarily a concern for you. So that's one of the things. That's a financial hardship to the people that abut that area. Going to what Jerome also referenced, what would it be like as they're building this facility? Again, we live in a very nice area of Durham. It's quiet, it's residential. Now you're going to have a facility built there. What is the period of time that the build would be there? What kind of tree coverage would remain going forward so that I know that the value of my home is not going to depreciate? Additionally, we do realize where this location is. So in addition to the fact that you're referencing that there are X amount of beds right now and that you're going to increase the amount of beds that exist, are you familiar with where this is on 751? This is right before the light that goes on to South Roxborough Street. How much additional traffic is going to increase now that will be going in and out of this facility going forward? And what kind of accommodations will be made for that part of the road in order to accommodate this new amount of people that will be living in that area? I have a number of different questions. I don't feel that this necessarily represents the people that are living in our area very appropriately. And I would like to understand what is going to happen here, because I have grave concerns given the fact that when we all bought into this community, there was no expectation that there was going to be this not even a residential community that would build down into this area. And frankly, you know, I'm not comfortable with this, and I think it's going to have a negative impact on our community and the value of our property. And I hope that you can all appreciate that. As a homeowner, I do have a concern about this. I work hard for every dollar that I bring in, and my home is important to me, and I hope that you all can appreciate that.
Thank you. Next, we have Lisa Peterson.
Thank you.
I am the president of the Valley Crest Townhome Association, and I am in agreement with my neighbors. I also have an additional concern on top of that, and that is the hardscaping that's coming into play. Where is all the rainwater going to go from that? As it currently stands, there is water that comes from their facility that comes onto our property, which we had to put in a storm drain because the water from that property was coming into our property. Now you're adding an additional 10,000 square feet of additional hardscaping and taking away land. That's going to increase the amount of water that's going to come down on our property. Our funds are extremely limited, and we can't afford to put in more storm drains, more just to avoid the water that's going to descend down on us. Their property sits considerably higher than us. 3 of us board members did go over to the property and looked at the plans that were submitted, and we at first felt that it wouldn't have an impact from a visual standpoint, but now I'm having second thoughts. So I do deeply have some concerns about the values and about the rainwater that will come in and potentially cause washout. The way it stands right now, if you were to go back there right now, you can see where the rainwater comes out, and it is directed right at unit 16 right now as it stands. So the way it was installed was not correct. I feel that there should be some kind of an elbow put in to redirect the water that goes in between the apartment buildings and the our property lines. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we had Kathy Gilliard. Kathy Gilliard, are you with us this evening? Yeah, actually, I don't see your name on the list. Let me just ask if anyone else who's with us would like to speak on this item. Again, you can digitally raise your hand. You press *9 and we'll be able to recognize you. Okay, not seeing anyone else. Mr. Sivers and your team, you did have a few additional minutes as part of your public hearing. If you would like to take that time to address some of the concerns, you're welcome to do that.
Yes, thank you. Am I still able to be heard?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So there were a few questions. I wrote them down as quick as I could as well. So construction noise, the construction noise, it will happen. You know, what we will, if it's willing to the board and able to be accepted by staff members, one thing with the landscaping is there are some areas in the buffers that are empty, not very fulfilled. In our site plan that is currently submitted to the city and under review, we are adding and supplementing trees and shrubs, understory canopy trees in those areas that don't have the required amount of trees and shrubs. So along those units to the north of this building, we are increasing the amount of trees and shrubs in that area. But to help with that construction noise, we'd be willing to commit that those buffers on the north and east of the property line are installed. The plant material will actually be installed before construction begins. So that'll help, one, make sure the trees remain in that area. They go in before construction as opposed to one of the last items. It will also help control the noise a little bit. We understand that, but they're noting it is construction. There will be a little construction noise. We will work diligently to keep that construction noise as low as possible, but adding to those buffers and installing those prior to the construction of the building, I think would be beneficial. So that kind of hit a few points from some of the couple neighbors. The wooded area mentioning that the neighbors want to keep it. Absolutely. Along the buffer, like I said, we'll actually be adding to that area. So some of the larger trees that are there now, we'll be planting underneath them to help provide a larger screen. So not only trees, but shrubs in addition to. Number of beds. I do want to clarify that the existing number of beds that is permitted with the state is 60. The number of beds is not increasing. So there's a difference between number of units and number of beds. The number of beds is not changing. The number of units is proposed to increase. What that means is we're giving the residents more room. There's more single occupancy rooms available than are available now. With only most of the rooms that are available now are double occupancy. So we're able to spread that out and provide different services for the residents, being able to provide more single occupancy rooms. But the overall number of beds that are permitted through the state are 60, and that is not being increased. Road accommodations. Even though we're not increasing the number of beds, we are doing the road improvements on 751. So there is a turn lane that will be added, a southbound turn lane. So as you were to approach this driveway from South Roxborough Street, you would be able to have a dedicated left turn lane into the development. So you could stop there, wait for traffic to clear, and traffic would be able to go past you on the right, and opposing traffic would pass you on the left. So you could stop and wait to have that access in a actual turn lane as opposed to holding up traffic. That will help keep the intersection clear as well. So traffic there would not be backed up towards the intersection. Property value, I'm not a certified broker, so I can't speak against property value. So I do apologize for that. But legally, I'm not a broker. I don't want to pretend to try to be one tonight. So stormwater, there's some questions on stormwater. So stormwater, we are proposing a little increase with the additional building. However, the detention basin that is there now will be brought up to par. Like you said, the building was built 25 years ago. Along with that detention basin, there are some improvements that will be made to that detention basin through the site plan process and construction review. So some of those items that were questioned about will be brought up to current codes with the requirement of the site plan. The second item I do want to add to with stormwater as well is a UDO requirement requires us to not increase the flow at the property line. So that we will do calculations through the site plan and construction documents that the stormwater device will accommodate that increase in impervious area, but the flow through the different storm events that go off the property line now would not be able to be increased. That is a UDO requirement. I believe I've hit most of the questions. Eric, if there's any questions, any answers you would like to add to as well, I would hand that back to him or back to the board for more questions.
No, thank you, Tim. I think we're also just on the traffic front. I think everyone who goes out there would agree that turning in and out of the building is a little bit of a scary experience right now. And so the addition of the turn lane is something that we're actually excited about. And we think it will be, make the flow of traffic on that road far better. And, as Tim mentioned, we're not increasing the capacity of the building in any way. So there won't be any real increase in the traffic or anything associated with that.
Thanks to all of you. I do not see anyone who has not yet spoken who is asking to speak in the public hearing. So we are going to close the public hearing, and commissioners, I see a few of you have already indicated your interest to speak. Commissioner Williams, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Chair Busby. I'm gonna try to be as brief as I possibly can. This particular project is essential. I don't know if anyone who has spoken against this has ever had an aging parent or will be an aging parent soon, but the ability to have accommodations that fit the residents that live in these facilities, that allow that they can have semi-independent lives and also be able to transition within the facility, have greater walkability space, and seem somewhat independent is essential. Having had a mother that passed away recently, and in touring facilities, this is a facility that I looked at, and the options within Durham are minimum at best when you're talking about caring for a loved one in the long term. So whereas I can tell you there will be hours of operation, so the traffic will not be heavy on a continuous basis. Most people who are going into these areas know that they need to wait until after 5 o'clock in order to visit relatives. The majority of the traffic will pick up on the weekends because that's when most people are off and they like to visit with residents and families and things on Sundays. I also take issue with the fact that, given the fact that the type of facility that this is not a nightclub, it's not a restaurant, it's not a park, it's not a golf club. It's actually a long-term care facility for aging adults that probably don't have anywhere else to go but here. But the chief concern is not about the fact that you yourselves will one day be these aging adults, but it's the fact that your property values will be diminished by a lack of trees for residents who probably will not be outside much anyway to look into your backyards. I have a major concern for that. Being from Durham, before Hope Valley Road was heavily populated by your homes, before MLK Boulevard and South Roxborough was built there, this facility was present and it served a purpose to the residents of Durham. And the fact that it's going to expand on that same purpose for those that live in Durham and are moving to Durham and will be in Durham, I think that need is a little bit greater than that. Addressing the runoff concerns, I appreciate the developer and the builder for doing that greatly. Not to diminish you as a homeowner, I myself am a homeowner, and I know the value of property when it comes to resale, and the area that you're given, that you actually live in, that property value is going to continue to increase because the amount of building that is actually being done in your area and everything that surrounds it that's not going anywhere anytime soon. So I'm going to vote in support of this because this is something that's being done in the city of Durham that serves a greater need beyond the immediate impacts that affect those that live directly around this area. It serves a greater need to the entire city of Durham and its population. And one day, everybody that is on this call may actually need to be a resident and will have somewhere to go within this facility.
Thanks, Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with everything that Commission Member Williams said, but I think that this could be a better development plan, and I also think before we vote, we can understand it a little bit better. Can somebody bring up the existing condition sheet from the development plan? Can we share that?
Just one moment, Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Danny.
I'm trying to do that right now for you.
I appreciate it.
Oops.
Can you show us the whole sheet, Danny?
Here we go. See if I can reduce it a little bit so you can see it better. Oh, too much.
Well, that's good right there.
There you go.
Whoops.
Can you see that?
Slip back. There we go. Leave it right there.
Okay.
So Tim, can you, using, maybe Danny can help you with the cursor, tell us where the new part of this building is going to go? Right in there. So that where it says mature mixed forest, I'm assuming that that's the grouping of trees that the neighbors were talking about. that adds to the buffer quality between their units and this facility. And it's those trees that are probably going to come out. Because right now, beyond the trees, in the corner there is the retention basin, and there are no trees there. And then I went and looked at this site. There's not a lot of room here for expansion. So let me ask Tim a couple of questions. Did Danny show us correctly where the new building's going to go?
Yes, generally, sir. If you will continue a line from the existing building at the north and the existing building on the right-hand side, if you were to extend those two walls, yep, those are approximately, that's the area.
So you're gonna complete that square.
That's pretty much it. Yes.
Then an open courtyard will be coming enclosed.
I'm sorry, sir. Say that.
That's all right. The open courtyard will become an enclosed courtyard.
No, we're actually, that's part of the open space and amenities that Mr. Eric Morton was speaking about. There'll still be a courtyard in that area.
No, but it'll be completely surrounded.
That's correct.
All right, that helps. And so how tall, that's very helpful. How tall will this new structure be?
So it's going to remain, and I'm flipping through to my building elevations.
It's one level?
Yes, one story. It'll match the existing building. Yes, one story.
Okay, so it's my understanding that under the current development plan, you've got a 45-foot height maximum, but you don't actually challenge that anywhere either in your current building or your proposed building, do you?
No.
So
can you clarify what do you mean by challenge? I want to make sure.
In other words, you could go to 45 feet under the current development plan. That's the current max, right?
Correct.
But your actual building that's there and the building you propose and the addition you propose to put on it don't go anywhere near 45 feet.
That's correct.
So my first request is, would you be willing to change your commitments with regard to height requirement? And that's a requirement to avoid the use permit requirement. You got to have height in there. Would you be willing to bring that down to something that is closer to what you actually are using? And that may reduce your neighbor's anxiety about what could go there and what their property would have to be buffered against.
Yes, if you can give me a few minutes to confirm with my team.
Sure.
Never mind, they confirmed yes.
So that's one aspect. So you're going to take those trees out, and I see that there's really just not any space around there. But the way you have described this increase is you're going to be providing the current number of users of this space, staff and residents, with more space per person, but not more people. So you don't need to add parking?
That is accurate, yes.
All right. So that was what I was concerned about. As I rode around there, I thought, gosh, there's just no room to do anything anywhere. But I do understand the residents' concern about buffering. Would you be willing, in the side of the property that is closest, the points where the building comes closest to your existing neighbors, to beef up the opacity percentage with additional plantings? Right now, it's a required 40%. Would you go to 60?
Can you give me a few minutes to confirm that?
Sure. And I'm not talking about all the way around the project. I'm talking about those places where, as I look at this map, that would probably be 2/3, the western 2/3 the length of the long side, and probably the northern 2/3 of the short side.
Okay, we're still messaging back and forth.
I get it.
The virtual world, right?
I thought you were all together without masks.
No, we're not this evening, sir. No, we're spread out offices. Yeah, we'd be able to increase the opacity with that. What we would want to keep is that our width remains the same, but what we would be able to do is provide more shrubs and more trees within those buffers. Can you clarify the areas you're speaking of?
Yeah, so when I'm looking again at this same map, Danny's got the cursor. Danny, could you go see right there? So go to the property line, if you would. Come over to the left, starting right about there and running all the way to the corner, and then from the corner down to about halfway.
Okay, so
down in there.
Yep.
Just that portion, that would be 60%. We'd leave the rest at 40%.
That'd be fine. What we'd be able to agree to is going in the areas that we are replanting, which is, I would say, 2/3 of that area you're talking about, because it doesn't have a good amount of shrubs that are there now. Would be willing to take that to the 60% opacity within that area, keeping it the 20-foot wide buffer, but increasing the opacity within that width.
Exactly. Yep. That's my request.
Yep.
And then would you be willing to add a commitment that's not currently present, as to give give the homeowners association some peace of mind about the capacity of your stormwater retention measures to control stormwater? Would you be willing to jump that up to some sort of flood event that's more than the minimum?
At this time, sir, without, as you said, it's pretty tight back in that area.
It is, and it's an engineering question that I did not expect you to be able to answer.
Yeah, I'd rather not commit to anything, sir, this evening, because with not being able to do the calculations, I want to make sure we still have the ability of the room to fit that. So we will take a look at that. But modifying that existing pond in general, because frankly, it needs a facelift, just like we're doing with the building, with this back corner. So there'll be increases to it to make it better, just by bringing it up to the code of today's code.
All right. So my requests have been to commit to a one-level facility with a maximum height of say 40 feet. And then the next one would be to commit to the 60% opacity buffers in that area that Danny has conveniently showed for us in green. And then the other one is at least your promise that you will look at strengthening your stormwater retention commitment between now and council.
Yes.
Those would be my requests. And if were you to do that, then I would be ready to vote for that tonight. And of course, I know I'm giving the staff dreadful heartburn, and I want to hear from them before we move forward. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, may I ask at least one of the resident opponents what they think of what I'm proposing?
Yes, you may. I might suggest, I believe someone who represented the homeowners association was with us, so that may be the appropriate person.
Yeah, they have the same problem that Tim does, is they're not all together in the same space and they can't go into a huddle. But in this context, though, it would be nice to know whether or not what I'm suggesting is resonating at all with any of them. So if I may, Mr. Chairman, is there somebody from among the opponents who we could light up and let them speak and see whether or not their anxiety and concern level would be adjusted downward if we could get these additional commitments?
Yeah. Commissioner.
I'd suggest Elisa Peterson, if you could speak. I know you're the president of the Homeowners Association, and if you can just address the comment that Commissioner Miller raised, that would be appreciated.
Yes, I will do that. Thank you, Commissioner. I am very happy with what you have suggested, Commissioner Miller, and I really appreciate what you're suggesting. And I have I think that the facility is a great facility, so I have nothing against the facility. It's just those concerns. So thank you for addressing those concerns. And I know there is another meeting, correct?
Well, your case will go to the city council and they make the final decision on things like this. We just are advisory. But this is an opportunity to at least for some things, and maybe this is one of them, to hammer out some improvements. I know the staff gives the staff heartburn when these things are done on the fly, because they like to be able to review them and make sure that they understand what's going on and what moves forward is enforceable and complies with the zoning code. And so if I can, Mr. Chair, can I ask the staff whether or not if the developer was willing to proffer those things that we've talked about tonight, whether they're comfortable with us voting or whether they would want a delay?
Yeah, you may.
Yeah, Commissioner Miller, this is Danny Coulter. We are fine with this moving forward. I just wanted to look up some things on some of these items that you mentioned. The one thing I would have concern is making sure that if these buffers are moved up to a 60% opacity at the width that they have, whether they would be able to do that and still, have the livability of the plant materials instead of trying to,
No, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And so if we said a minimum 60% opacity, I suppose they would have the option of going to the solid hedge or wall. Wouldn't that be available?
Yeah, actually the buffers on one portion showed being reduced possibly down to 15 feet, but typical reductions in the suburban tier require either a berm or a wall to be put in place.
Right. The code used to say a solid hedge too was an option in there.
You can use a solid hedge in lieu of a wall, but the thing to concern is to make sure that there is sufficient space to provide for all of the material needed to meet that opacity within the.
Would you feel better if there was a 30-day delay or a 60-day delay while all those things were worked out?
This is Tim Sivers. Can I speak on that?
Yeah, actually, Mr. Chairman is running it. I've kind of taken over. I'm sorry, Brian.
No, that's fine. This is important because if the staff is comfortable with these proposals, then we can move.
But Danny's raised a really good point about you can go to 60% opacity, but you can't do it on a pinhead. There's got to be enough space. And the question is, Tim, can you make enough space in that area that we drew in green in order to make a viable 60% opacity buffer?
Yes, I believe we can. In the areas that we're supplementing, I believe we can make that work. Yes, I'm looking at the site plan. As I said, the site plan has been submitted, so it's already completed. We're providing the buffers in that area. By me looking at the plan right here in front of me, the site plan, I do believe we can fit those additional trees and shrubs in that area.
And Danny, does that reassure you? It reassures me.
It does some. The other thing that is allowed as well is you can actually, by ordinance, do buffer width variations. And there is a lot of plant material in other areas. You can take a certain width of an area and you can displace it. So you could increase the buffer width in one area even if you reduce it in another area and offset that buffer.
Yeah, but the whole point of the 60% opacity in these areas is that
True.
we get a beefed up screening. So while I appreciate the utility of the ability to do that, in this instance, I don't think it works for our purpose.
Yeah, and I don't think they can actually increase it in that area because they've got those existing drains that feed off the detention pond.
Right. Okay.
They would have to maintain the existing width of the buffers that they're proposing.
So Tim, what's the best move forward from what I've suggested?
So I feel comfortable that we can fit the number of trees and additional shrubs in those areas. There is an area within that area you've highlighted that is staying natural. So I would like to, if possible, again, we are augmenting about probably 75% of the area you've highlighted. So I would like to, if acceptable to you, to clarify that those areas that we're currently planting, we just increase those as well. I've pulled up the UDO, and for every 100 feet, what you're asking for, and Danny, I believe this can fit, is additional three canopy trees. Six canopy trees, and about 20 or 30 shrubs for every 100 feet. And looking at the plan, we can fit that. So I feel confident in that.
Okay.
So if the developer was willing to make those proffers to reduce, to clarify that the building will be one level and that the height limit will be 35 feet and that the buffer along those spaces, and the print's too small for me to throw in the numbers, but you know what we're talking about. We can throw those numbers in. With those proffers, I'm going to vote for this and urge everyone else to vote for it as well. Thank you for indulging me, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. That was, I think, well worth our time. I have heard the staff indicate that they're comfortable with these proffers and having a vote this evening. I've heard the developer commit to the proffers. Commissioner Miller, I agree with you. I also appreciate the willingness to look at the stormwater issues, Mr. Stivers. I'm going to put that in my comments. I hope that's something that, as you're able to take a look at that, if there is something additional you can offer as this moves forward to council, I think that would be really important because I know that that was an additional concern that was valid from the neighbors.
Can I follow up on 2 items when your comments are done about that, sir?
Yeah, actually, before I recognize Commissioner Amendolia, I'll recognize you, Mr. Stivers, for any final follow-up on this.
Okay, with the stormwater, yes, we will take a look at it. However, I would like to clarify that if any changes are potential, I'd like to continue the case to City Council. I absolutely making a comment. I'm in front of this board a lot. I will promise that we will look at it and see what we can do. But that with the calculations that are needed for that, that's the best promise I can make at this time tonight. So I would like to say to make the commitment that we will look towards and look at that as an option. But I do want to move forward to City Council, even if we do make that commitment. The second question that is more for staff, I made, and as I'm sitting here making sure Commissioner Miller made the good point of ensuring that staff was okay with these proposals. The proposal that I made about having the plant material installed prior to construction. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to make that commitment. I'm willing to put it on the development plan as a commitment. I just want to make sure staff is able to be able to add that as a legal text commitment because I typically know they need an entity to confirm that that's been completed. So if staff is acceptable to that, I will add it, but I just wanted to clarify that point with them as well.
That was going to be a clarifying question for me, is the triggering mechanism to ensure that those plantings would be in prior to construction. If you're okay, Tim, with doing this prior to issuance of building permit, I think we could do that then because we could still have zoning compliance staff go out and inspect those materials, provided that there is, I guess the other question is there going to be any land disturbance in those areas, that you're going to have to make?
There will be a minor land disturbance, simply to go in and plant the trees, but that's generally it.
Well, and you can get a land disturbance permit prior to your building permit as well. So, but if we could, I'm comfortable that we condition that with those additional plantings in those areas being installed and inspected for compliance prior to issuance of a building permit.
I'm going to have to review with my team on that, primarily because our site plans and building permits are pretty much ready to be approved very shortly. That would entail the plants going in the next short time. So let me review that and I'll be back to staff on that. I would like to ask though, if that is an acceptable way to move forward, that we are able to move forward to City Council with that.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Stivers. Commissioner Amendolia?
Thank you, Chair. So first, I'm in favor of this case. My comments tonight are not necessarily specifically about this case, but kind of continuing to beat the drum of the patchwork planning we do in regards to sidewalks and bike lanes. I kind of chuckled at myself when I read that there was a dedicated bike lane as part of this project, because I live in this area and it would be probably the only bike lane on all of Hope Valley Road. And it won't even completely connect to the bike lane that begins on South Roxborough Road. And even if it did, it would just lead to some trails, which are great. I love that there's plenty of trails in this area. But it would lead to more houses. It wouldn't lead to the commercial centers that are nearby further south on Hope Valley Road. That's nothing specific to this developer, this applicant. It's again highlighting the ways we need to think more holistically when we're planning some of these things, and we really need to figure out how we're going to connect some of the dots forming throughout the city. Other than that, I think this is a good plan. I'm excited to hear the extra commitments from the applicant and the developer. And with that, I will be voting yes tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I don't see any other commissioners asking to be recognized. So Commissioner Miller, I'm going to ask you specifically to make the motion given the proffers on this case, please.
I'm happy to do that. So in connection with case Z2000004, the property at 4523 Hope Valley Road, I move that we send this forward to the City Council with a favorable recommendation on the condition that it include the proffers that the developer made tonight. And staff, correct me if I'm wrong, with this case as the one that preceded it, there is no attendant recommendation with regard to the future land use map.
That is correct, Commissioner Miller. And can I get a clarification too? Was Mr. Sivers trying to confirm on the timing mechanism for still on the planting of those project boundary buffers?
Yes, please, if I can have the floor, Chairman.
Yeah, Commissioner Miller, if we can just pause 1 second. I apologize for that.
No. That's fine.
I apologize as well. I did want to clarify that. Because there is a timing mechanism that needs to be associated with the planting of those material prior to, as I provided. So if it's acceptable to planning, in order for us to proceed and get final permitting approved, we would agree that that plant material is installed prior to the first building inspection approval, which is typically your footing inspection. So it's relatively the same time, but what that allows us to do is get our permits in hand.
Would that still give you the ability, however, to start putting machine on the ground?
Generally, yes, because machines on the ground are going to be needed to install the plant material.
Okay. We're conferring internally, and I think we would be, we'll be acceptable to that.
Thank you. That works for us as well.
Great. Thanks to both of you. Commissioner Miller, I'll give you the floor once again for the motion.
Well, then I repeat the same motion. And you were waiting for a second.
Second, Cameron.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller moved, Commissioner Cameron seconded. We'll have the roll call vote.
Amendolia,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
ॿ𝗪cie,
Yes.
Cameron,
Yes.
Cutright,
Yes.
Durkin, Commissioner Durkin.
Yes.
Okay. Kinchin,
Yes.
Lanfried,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
and Williams.
Yes.
Okay, it passes 12-0.
Thank you. That is it for our items this evening. Ms. Smith, I don't know if there's anything to note for next month's meeting.
No, we have a few cases coming your way, at least 4. So, and then the continued case. So.
Yeah. May I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
You may.
So today we got a communication from someone who was concerned about an upcoming rezoning case on East Gear. And my question to the staff is, that's not coming up next month, is it?
No.
And then also is,
I'm gonna double check, but not that I'm aware of.
and the other one that I wanted to know about is the Guess and Latta. That's not next month.
Oh, absolutely not. It's still in review.
All right, thank you very much. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other final items for this evening? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. We will see you in February.
Thank you.